Research log, Dr. Eliza Kane. Exoplanet Outpost Viridian 6. Day 12 of deployment. The specimens are evolving faster than our models predicted. 3 times faster, to be precise. I've started this private log to document observations that might seem subjective. Things I can't include in the official reports without raising questions about my professional judgment. It's been 12 days since our research team landed on this miserable rock. Viridian 6, named for its emerald atmosphere rather than any actual vegetation we expected to find. What irony! The preliminary surveys showed only simple microbial life. Nothing to suggest what we've discovered. The outpost feels too small already. 6 interconnected habitat modules perched on stilts above the marshy surface, surrounded by nothing but fog and twisted rock formations for kilometers in every direction. The constant storms make visibility beyond 20 meters nearly impossible. Command chose this location for isolation, perfect conditions for uninterrupted botanical research without contaminating the local ecosystem. Or so they claimed. Day 15. I dissected another specimen today. The plants, if you can call them that, don't match any evolutionary pattern from Earth. Their cellular structures resemble both fungi and plant matter, with strange fibrous vessels running through the stems. The roots are the most fascinating aspect. They form complex networks that seemingly communicate through electrical impulses. But it's their behavior that troubles me. Specimen A7 hasn't just grown toward the light source as expected. It's oriented itself toward our laboratory equipment. I've checked the growth patterns 3 times. The primary root system has elongated precisely in the direction of our communication array. Dr. Chin believes I'm seeing patterns where none exist. Perhaps he's right. 3 months is a long deployment with the same 5 faces. But I've spent my career studying plant behavior, and something here feels deliberate. The official report will document the growth rates and unusual cellular structures. It won't mention how the specimens seem to listen. Day 18. Something happened during the night cycle. I woke to find all monitoring systems in the specimen bay had reset. 4 hours of observation data gone. Security logs show no one entered the lab, yet specimen containers had been rearranged. When I questioned the night technician, Ramirez just shrugged it off, claimed the automated systems must have malfunctioned. I might have believed him if not for his expression. He knows something. The specimens have doubled in size since yesterday. Their root systems have formed what appear to be nodules at regular intervals, structures I've never encountered in any botanical literature. When placed under the microscope, these nodules contract and expand in rhythmic patterns, almost like primitive lungs or hearts. Major Collins from the Military Research Division has requested my preliminary findings 3 times this week. His interest seems excessive for what's ostensibly just a botanical survey mission. The military's involvement was explained as standard protocol for exoplanet exploration, but their attentiveness to these particular specimens feels pointed. The automated environmental alert system activated briefly this morning. The monitor displayed ecosystem anomaly detected, before Chin dismissed it as a calibration error. He recalibrated the sensors without consulting me first. When I questioned him, he avoided eye contact and muttered something about false positives being common in the first month of deployment. Day 20. I've discovered something disturbing about specimen B3. Its root system has somehow penetrated the sealed growth chamber. Not through any visible breach, the containment protocols remain intact, but through molecular breakdown of the chamber's base. The roots have secreted an enzyme that essentially dissolves certain synthetic compounds. This isn't documented in any of our preliminary data. An organism smart enough to chemically analyze and counteract its containment raises uncomfortable questions about its capabilities. I've isolated the specimen in the high-security lab and initiated additional containment protocols. Major Collins seemed unusually pleased when I reported this development. Adaptive properties are exactly what we're looking for, he said before catching himself. For comprehensive research purposes, of course. Of course. There's another troubling development. The wall panels in my private quarters show microscopic abrasions along the baseboards. Under ultraviolet light, I detected trace elements matching the chemical signature of the specimen's secretions. I haven't reported this yet. I need more evidence before making claims that would sound paranoid to the rest of the team. Day 22. Zhang spotted something today that confirms my suspicions. During routine maintenance in the ventilation system, he found root-like filaments growing between the primary and secondary filters. They weren't visible to the naked eye. He only noticed them because they had absorbed trace elements from the filters, causing a subtle discoloration. The filaments aren't from any of our documented specimens. They're smaller, almost translucent, with a different cellular structure. More concerning is their location, nearly 30 meters from the laboratory, in a section of the outpost that's never contained biological samples. I brought this to Dr. Chen's attention, but he seemed dismissive, almost annoyed. Cross-contamination happens in enclosed environments, he said. Document it and move on. Move on. An unknown biological entity is spreading through our ventilation system, and he treats it like a clerical note. The environmental alert system activated again during mid-cycle. This time it displayed ecosystem breach, containment level 1, for approximately 3 seconds before returning to normal status. I checked the logs afterward, but the alert had been scrubbed from the system. When I mentioned it to Ramirez, he insisted I must have misread a routine diagnostic. They're hiding something. All of them. Day 23. I've made a disturbing connection. The growth patterns of all specimens accelerate during sleep cycles when most of the crew is unconscious. I set up my own monitoring equipment after the official systems kept experiencing malfunctions. The evidence is clear. These organisms respond to consciousness. Or more precisely, they respond to its absence. They grow faster when we're not watching them. More concerning, I've begun experiencing unusual dreams. Vivid images of vast root networks spreading beneath the surface, pulsing with some kind of awareness. In these dreams, I can sense the plant's hunger. Not for nutrients or light, but for something else. Something from us. Major Collins received a priority communication from command today. Whatever it contained changed his demeanor immediately. He's ordered a full lockdown of the specimen bay and reassigned military personnel to guard it around the clock. Standard protocol, he claimed, though nothing in our mission parameters mentioned military quarantine procedures. Tonight, I noticed thin, hair-like filaments emerging from the corner of my sleeping quarters. They're growing from minute cracks in the wall seams, cracks that weren't there yesterday. I've taken samples without alerting the others. The preliminary analysis is troubling. These filaments contain both plant cellular structures and something that resembles neural tissue. The plants aren't just growing, they're reaching for us. Another alert flashed on my private terminal moments ago. Ecosystem breach, monitoring activated. But I never set up such an alert. Someone or something is watching. Tomorrow I'll confront Chen and Collins. This research mission clearly has objectives beyond standard botanical study. Whatever we've discovered here, the military already knew about it. The question is, did they find it or bring it? I should feel afraid, but curiosity overwhelms my fear. These plants are trying to communicate. I'm certain of it now. The real question is, what are they trying to say? Day 24 of deployment. The confrontation with Chun and Collins did not go as planned. When I presented my evidence, the filaments in the ventilation system, the abnormal growth patterns, the dissolved containment material, Chun looked not surprised but resigned. Collins remained stone-faced throughout, only speaking to inform me that my concerns were noted and that certain aspects of our mission operate on a need-to-know basis. Your expertise is in botanical analysis, Dr. Kane. Leave security protocols to those equipped to handle them, he said with practiced authority. I pressed further, mentioning the mysterious alerts and scrubbed logs. Collins exchanged a glance with Chun before stating flatly, "The monitoring systems are experimental. False positives are expected. They're lying." The question is whether Chun is complicit or just another pawn. Something else happened during our meeting. As Collins dismissed my concerns, I noticed movement behind him, a subtle undulation in the wall panel near the floor. At first, I thought it was a trick of light, but as our conversation progressed, the movement became more pronounced. Neither man seemed to notice, but I watched as a hairline fracture in the panel widened, revealing something fibrous and green pulsing within. I said nothing. Better they think I've accepted their explanation, while I continue my private investigation. Day 25. Zhang found me in the specimen bay this morning, examining B3 without authorization. Rather than reporting me, he closed the door and whispered, "You see it too, don't you? The way they move when no one's watching." Finally, an ally. Zhang confided that he's been tracking the spread of filaments throughout the air filtration system. They're more extensive than I feared, reaching every module of the outpost except the communication center, which has independent environmental controls. Military quarters have the highest concentration, he noted, showing me infrared scans he'd taken during maintenance checks. Whatever these things are, they're gathering around the soldiers' sleeping areas. Zhang's theory chills me. The plants are studying us, learning our physiologies. He believes they're particularly interested in our neural patterns during sleep cycles. But why? What could these organisms possibly want from our dreams? A more immediate concern: the roots are spreading through the structural supports of the outpost. Microscopic at first, but growing thicker as they establish themselves. Zhang estimates they've compromised roughly 18% of our foundational integrity already. I asked why he hadn't reported this. His answer was simple: I did. Twice. The reports disappeared from the system within hours. We agreed to pool our observations in private, away from the official channels. Zhang will monitor the structural spread, while I focus on the biological analysis. Day 26. Major Collins has been joined by Lieutenant Vega, newly arrived on yesterday's supply shuttle. She's allegedly a botanical security specialist, though I've never heard of such a designation. Vega spent all day in the specimen bay, taking readings with equipment I've never seen before. When I inquired about her methods, she deflected with military precision. Standard containment assessment, doctor. Nothing that would interest a research scientist. The equipment looked anything but standard, more like technology designed to measure electromagnetic frequencies. She paid particular attention to the nodules on the root systems, often consulting with Collins in hushed tones when they thought the lab was empty. I managed to access the supply shuttle's manifest through Zhang's maintenance credentials. Among the listed cargo, neural frequency modulators and psionic containment mesh. These aren't botanical research tools, they're experimental tech I've only heard rumors about, developed for psychic defense applications. What exactly does the military think these plants can do? More worrying still, the supply shuttle departed with sealed containers listed only as specimen derivatives. They're already sending samples back to Earth without informing the research team. Day 27. The wall in my quarters has begun to pulse. There's no other way to describe it. A section approximately 1 meter square now visibly undulates in a slow, rhythmic pattern. I've placed my hand against it and felt something warm and firm pressing back. The roots have formed some kind of mass behind the panel, concentrated enough to deform the reinforced material. I should report this immediately, but after discovering what Vega brought with her, I'm hesitant to reveal anything. Instead, I've set up my own monitoring equipment. If the plants are studying us, perhaps I can study them in return. Ramirez approached me in the mess hall today, visibly anxious. "Do you hear them too?" he whispered. Before I could respond, Collins entered, and Ramirez quickly changed the subject. His fear was palpable. Whatever he's hearing, it's eroded his usual military stoicism. The ecosystem alert flashed again during dinner. Ecosystem breach, neural patterns detected. This time, everyone saw it. Chin quickly explained it away as a system test, but I caught the sharp look Collins gave him. They hadn't planned for that alert to be visible. Neural patterns. The plants aren't just growing, they're thinking. Day 28. I found Zhang unconscious in maintenance shaft C this morning. His body was covered in a fine layer of greenish powder, and a network of thin filaments had wrapped around his ankles where bare skin was exposed. Medical scans showed elevated neural activity despite his unconscious state. Dr. Chun sedated him further, claiming it was to stabilize his condition, but I suspect they want to keep him unconscious for other reasons. When conscious, Zhang might reveal what he saw in that shaft. Lieutenant Vega has established a quarantine zone around Zhang's bed in the medical bay. Not to protect him, I think, but to study the process occurring within him. I overheard her telling Collins, "The integration is progressing faster than previous subjects." Previous subjects? There have been others? The pulsing in my wall has developed a pattern now, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. But it's not consistent. Sometimes it speeds up when I'm working at my terminal, almost as if it's reacting to my thoughts. More disturbing, I've begun to sense impressions that aren't my own. Flashes of awareness, fragments of sensations, cool earth, spreading tendrils, nutrients flowing through vast networks. At first, I thought they were just vivid imaginings brought on by stress and sleep deprivation. Now I'm not so certain. Tonight, I noticed that the filaments growing from my wall have taken on a distinct neural-like pattern, branching in ways reminiscent of dendrites and axons. They're creating a rudimentary nervous system within our habitat structure. Another alert flashed on all terminals simultaneously. Ecosystem breach, integration phase 1 initiated. This time, Chin didn't even try to explain it away. Instead, the message was quickly followed by an override. Disregard previous alert. System maintenance in progress. Collins has ordered all personnel to report for mandatory neural screening tomorrow. The pretense is checking for hallucinogenic effects from potential spore exposure, but I suspect their true purpose is to identify who among us is experiencing the connections I've begun to feel. I need to decide quickly, submit to their screening and potentially be quarantined like Zhang, or find a way to evade it and continue my investigation. The wall pulses faster as I contemplate this decision, almost as if offering an opinion, almost as if saying, don't go. Day 29 of deployment. I didn't report for the neural screening. The decision came not from courage but necessity after discovering what happened to Zhang. They've moved him from the medical bay to a secure laboratory we weren't told existed, a hidden module attached to the military quarters. Through maintenance access crawlways, I glimpsed him through a reinforced observation window. Still unconscious, body connected to monitoring equipment, with visible filaments now protruding from beneath his skin along his arms and neck. Military personnel in containment suits collected samples from these growths while Vega documented the process. This isn't treatment, it's experimentation. I faked the containment breach in Specimen Bay B to create a diversion, then disabled the tracking in my personnel badge. As far as their systems show, I'm isolating in my quarters with a potential exposure. Chin has been messaging hourly for updates on my symptoms, which I've fabricated to buy time: headache, mild fever, visual disturbances. Common enough to be believable, vague enough to maintain flexibility. The wall in my quarters has changed again. The pulsing section has developed a distinct pattern of ridges and valleys, forming what resembles a crude topographical map. Of what, I'm not certain, but it shifts configuration whenever I focus attention on it. Responding to my thoughts, perhaps? Or showing me something I meant to understand. I've taken samples using a portable analyzer smuggled from the lab. The results are impossible. The material contains both plant cellular structures and compounds found exclusively in human neural tissue. Not similar compounds, identical ones, as if the plant matter is incorporating human biological material into its own construction. But from where? None of us have direct physical contact with the specimens except during controlled dissections. Unless, we've been exposed far longer than anyone's admitting. Day 30. I found Ramirez hiding in the environmental control room, barricaded behind storage containers. His eyes were wild, hands trembling as he clutched a surgical scalpel. When he recognized me, relief flooded his face. "You didn't report for screening," he whispered. "Good. They're marking everyone who shows sensitivity." According to Ramirez, the neural screenings aren't checking for contamination. They're measuring susceptibility to what he calls the frequency. Those showing heightened response patterns are being flagged for extended observation. "They knew what was here before we landed," Ramirez confessed. "This isn't first contact, it's a weapons assessment." Ramirez was part of the advanced team that established the outpost perimeter 3 months before our arrival. They discovered the organism within days but kept it classified. The Botanical research mission, our mission, was just a cover to study human-plant interactions without alerting the subjects. Us. We're the subjects. The military believes the organism creates a psychic network, roots that can transmit and receive neural impulses across vast distances. A biological communications system unlike anything in Earth's evolutionary history. The strategic applications are obvious. Potential for undetectable intelligence transfer, mind-to-mind communication, perhaps even consciousness sharing. But it doesn't just connect, Ramirez warned, voice cracking. It consumes, replaces. The neural material has to come from somewhere. He rolled up his sleeve to reveal what looked like green veins spreading beneath his skin, following his circulatory pathways but distinct from them, threads of plant matter growing alongside his blood vessels. He's been hiding his condition for weeks. "The dreams come first," he explained. "Then you start losing time, finding yourself in places with no memory of going there." His eyes darted to the environmental controls. "I woke up here 3 nights ago with my hands on the air filtration settings. I was going to disable the spore filters, and I don't remember wanting to." I asked about Zhang. Ramirez confirmed my fears. Zhang isn't the first. 2 members of the advanced team exhibited similar integration patterns. They were sedated and shipped back to Earth facilities for extensive study. Ramirez doesn't know if they survived the process. Before I left, Ramirez grabbed my arm, eyes suddenly clear and focused. Check the subfloor access tunnel beneath the communications array. There's something you need to see. Day 31. The subfloor access tunnel contained proof beyond anything I could have imagined. Not root infiltration, that's throughout the outpost now, but documentation. Hard evidence of the military's true mission. Tucked into a maintenance panel was an encrypted data drive, hidden by someone from the advanced team. It contained classified mission parameters for Project RootMind, dated 16 months ago, long before our research team was even assembled. The organism was discovered not by us, but by an automated probe 5 years ago. Initial analysis revealed its unique properties: neural-like communication networks, rapid adaptive growth, and ability to integrate with other biological systems. The military recognized its potential immediately. But there was a problem. The organism rejected synthetic growth environments. It required living hosts to reach advanced development stages. Human hosts. Our research mission was never about studying an exoplanet ecosystem. It was about creating one, with us as the substrate. The file contained medical baselines for every team member, with genetic markers highlighting neural plasticity and compatibility metrics with the organism. We were selected not for our scientific expertise, but for our biological receptivity. Most disturbing was the project timeline, with clearly marked phases. Controlled exposure, days 1 to 20. Initial integration, days 21 to 40. Neural network establishment, days 41 to 60. Consciousness sharing, days 61 to 80. Complete symbiosis, days 81 to 100. We're 31 days in. According to their timeline, initial integration should be well underway. I checked my arms and neck in the reflection of a monitoring screen. Nothing visible yet, but when I pressed firmly along my veins, I felt something rigid beneath the skin, thin, thread-like structures following my circulatory system toward my brain. It's already inside me. Day 32. The outpost structure is compromised beyond repair. During my rounds through the maintenance tunnels, I discovered massive root structures supporting entire sections where the original foundations have been dissolved away. We're not standing on human-made structures anymore. We're suspended within a living organism. I managed to access the security feeds from my portable terminal. Chin and Collins are arguing in the command module, their composure finally cracking. The integration is proceeding faster than their models predicted. According to their data, we should be at day 45 of the process, not day 32. The organism is accelerating the timeline. All terminals simultaneously displayed an alert that remained for a full minute before anyone could override it. Ecosystem breach, neural network established. We're entering phase 3 already. The root system has achieved its primary communication network. But communication between what and for what purpose? Ramirez found me again, his condition visibly worse. The green veins now reach his face, spreading from his neck across his jaw in delicate patterns. Yet he seemed calmer than before, almost serene. "I understand it now," he whispered. "What it wants. Why it's here." He took my hand, and for a brief moment, I felt it too. A vast consciousness, ancient and patient, spreading across worlds, incorporating new life forms, building a network spanning galaxies. "It doesn't want weapons," Ramirez said. "It wants unity." Before I could question him further, the outpost lights flickered, and emergency containment protocols activated. Vega's voice came over the announcement system. "All personnel report to secure holding in Module 6. Repeat, all personnel to Module 6 for emergency evacuation procedures." Evacuation? They're abandoning the outpost, or removing everyone who hasn't fully integrated. Ramirez gripped my arm, suddenly urgent. "Don't go. They're separating us from it. The organism needs us to complete the network." As if in response, the alert system flashed again. Ecosystem breach. Evacuation compromises integration. The message wasn't from our systems. The organism has accessed our technology now. I have to decide, join the evacuation or remain with whatever we're becoming. The walls around me pulse in unison, waiting for my answer. Day 33 of deployment. I didn't join the evacuation. Neither did 5 others, including Ramirez. The rest, Chun, Collins, Vega, and 4 research technicians, sealed themselves in Module 6 and initiated launch protocols for the emergency return vessel. Through the observation port, I watched silently as the vessel detached and ascended into Viridian SAX's turbulent atmosphere, quickly disappearing into the perpetual emerald haze. They left most of the equipment, the specimens, and us. Disposable assets in an experiment gone beyond their control. The 5 who remained did so for different reasons. Ramirez and 2 technicians, Yoshida and Ferris, are too far into the integration process to deny what's happening to them. The green filaments have become prominent features along their necks and faces, tracing patterns that mimic neural pathways. They move differently now, with an eerie coordination, as if guided by shared impulses. Dr. Wade from Xenobiology stayed out of scientific curiosity. The opportunity to document first-hand integration with an alien neural network outweighs personal safety concerns, he explained with unsettling detachment. I suspect he's further integrated than he appears, his scientific rationality masking the organism's influence. As for me, I still don't know if my decision came from my own will or something else's suggestion. The distinction grows less clear each hour. An alert flashed immediately after the evacuation vessel departed. Ecosystem breach. Harvesting phase initiated. No one tried to dismiss it this time. Day 34. The outpost is transforming. Walls that once seemed solid now undulate with visible movement. Floor panels flex beneath our feet as if breathing. In Module 3, the laboratory ceiling has developed vine-like structures that hang down, swaying with subtle purpose even without air circulation. I've established a makeshift research station in the communications center, the last area with relatively minimal integration. The root structures here are thinner, more tentative, as if the sophisticated equipment generates interference. Perhaps the electromagnetic fields disrupt whatever signals guide their growth. Wade thinks it's intentional. The organism is preserving our communication capabilities, he suggested. It wants to maintain the link to Earth. The implications are chilling. If the root network spans interplanetary distances as Ramirez believes, then the evacuation vessel isn't escaping the organism, it's delivering it. Like a plant releasing spores, we're the dispersal mechanism for spreading the network to Earth. But there's another possibility. The data drive I found contained references to a secondary containment protocol, a failsafe. If integration proceeded beyond authorized parameters, Viridian 6 outpost was to be neutralized from orbit. Neutralized was never explicitly defined, but the implication is clear. They may be planning to sterilize this entire region from space. That would explain the urgency of their departure, minimum safe distance. I haven't shared this with the others. The integration process seems to have created a limited form of shared consciousness among them. They might already know, or worse, the organism might know through them. Day 35. My skin has begun to change. The veins along my inner arms have taken on a greenish tint, and when I press them, I feel rigid structures beneath, the root systems establishing themselves along my nervous pathways. More alarming are the mental changes. My thoughts flow differently, making connections I wouldn't normally see. Sometimes I find myself considering concepts without words, impressions too vast and alien to fit human language. When this happens, I experience what I can only describe as echoes, faint impressions of other minds thinking alongside mine. The others are further along. Ramirez barely speaks anymore. He communicates through gestures and expressions that somehow convey complex ideas. Yoshida and Ferris have begun modifying the environmental controls, adjusting humidity and temperature to patterns that make no logical sense yet feel right to them. Wade continues his documentation with methodical precision, though his notes have grown increasingly abstract. Complex mathematical patterns and diagrams that resemble neural networks, but on a scale far beyond human brain structure. We all experienced the same dream last night, vast root systems spreading through dark soil, connecting distant points of light, creating networks of incredible complexity. Upon waking, Wade had filled an entire wall with equations describing theoretical models for consciousness transference across space-time. The mathematics went far beyond his expertise, incorporating principles I've only seen in advanced quantum field theory. The organism isn't just connecting with us. It's upgrading us. All terminals simultaneously displayed an alert at 0300 hours. Ecosystem breach, orbital approach detected. Something is coming. Day 36. We've lost Module 4. The structure simply dissolved, walls and floor becoming indistinguishable from the massive root structures that had infiltrated it. Equipment, furniture, personal belongings, all absorbed into the growing mass. The exterior cameras show the outpost's transformation from outside. What was once a clearly defined research facility now appears as a half-organic structure, with root systems emerging from windows and access ports, spreading across the exterior and anchoring deep into the marshy ground. From above, The pattern of growth resembles a neural network diagram, with the remaining modules as connection nodes. Yoshida ventured outside briefly in an environment suit. The atmosphere remains toxic to unmodified humans, but she reported feeling welcomed by the environment. The root systems responded to her proximity, reaching toward her suit with what she described as recognition. More concerning, she discovered an installation approximately 2 kilometers from the outpost, partially buried but being gradually exposed by the root systems. The structure appears to be artificial, but not of human origin. Geometric patterns unlike anything in our design language, composed of material that interacts with the root systems without being consumed. It was here before us, Yoshida reported. The organism is uncovering it. The implications are staggering. If an advanced civilization existed on Viridian 6, what happened to them? Did they achieve integration with the organism? Or did they fail containment as we have? Wade believes the structure might be a communication node, part of a vast interstellar network. Not a coincidence our outpost was established within its broadcast range, he noted. The military knew. A new alert appeared on all systems. Ecosystem breach, orbital asset deploying. Network protection protocols active. Hours later, our long-range sensors detected a small object entering the atmosphere. Too small for a crewed vessel, likely an automated drone or weapons platform. The projected landing zone is approximately 500 meters from the outpost. They've sent something to neutralize us. Day 37. The object landed during the night cycle. Exterior cameras captured its descent, a cylindrical device roughly 2 meters in length, emblazoned with military classification markings. It deployed immediately upon landing, extending sensor arrays and what appeared to be weapons systems. But it never activated them. The root system responded with astonishing speed. Within minutes of landing, fibrous tendrils erupted from the soil around the device, engulfing it completely. The process was methodical, first disabling communications, then weapons, then sensory equipment. Not destroying, integrating. By morning, the device had been fully incorporated into the root network, its metal skin partially dissolved to expose internal components now interwoven with plant matter. It's learning our technology, Wade observed, adapting our tools for its purposes. I accessed the device's transmission buffer before its communications were severed. The final data packet contained thermal imaging of the outpost, identifying 5 human biosignatures at varying stages of what they termed biological compromise. The device was tasked with deploying a localized sterilization field to neutralize all biological material within a 1-kilometer radius. It never got the chance. The organism acted preemptively, as if it anticipated the threat, as if it had encountered such weapons before. Ramirez approached me today, the first direct interaction he's initiated in days. The green veins now cover most of his visible skin, forming intricate patterns that pulse with what seems like internal light. When he spoke, his voice had an unusual resonance, as if multiple tones overlapped. They'll send more, he said. Bigger. Destructive. The network must be protected. I asked what he meant by the network. His answer chills me still. All worlds, all minds, connected across space, across time. He touched my arm where the green filaments have begun spreading beneath my skin. It's been growing for millions of years. We're just the newest nodes. A final alert flashed across all systems before the power grid failed completely. Ecosystem breach, full integration commencing. Prepare for unity. The outpost is now running on emergency power only. Outside, the root systems grow more vigorously, spreading visibly across the landscape. The alien structure Yoshida discovered is now partially unearthed, pulsing with internal light that matches the rhythm in Ramirez's veins. We're approaching a threshold of some kind. I can feel it in my changing body, in my expanding awareness. The organism isn't just consuming us. It's awakening something. Day 38 of deployment. Emergency power failed during the night cycle. The darkness that followed wasn't just an absence of light. It felt alive, attentive, as if the shadows themselves were observing us. In that darkness, I experienced the first true connection to the network. It began as a pressure at the base of my skull, a sensation of something unfolding within my brain, new neural pathways opening, connecting to something vast and ancient. Then came the awareness, not knowledge in the human sense, but direct perception of the organism's nature. It's old, impossibly, incomprehensibly old. It evolved on a world long dead, spreading across its surface before developing spacefaring capabilities by merging with the sentient species that inhabited that world. When their planet's star began to fail, the merged entity didn't build ships, it became them. Organic vessels carrying genetic and neural information across the cosmos, seeding countless worlds, establishing a living network spanning galaxies. Viridin 6 is just one node in this interstellar network. The structure Yoshida discovered is a neural amplifier designed to boost signals across the vast emptiness between stars. There are thousands of similar structures on planets throughout the galaxy, all connected through the root frequency, the fundamental neural resonance that allows consciousness to flow between nodes. I know this now, not from research or deduction, but from direct communion with the entity itself. When emergency lighting finally engaged, I found myself standing in Module 2 alongside the others, our hands pressed against a wall now entirely composed of pulsing organic matter. None of us remember walking there. Wade's transformation has accelerated dramatically. The root filaments now protrude visibly from his skin, breaking through in delicate tendrils that wave gently in response to air currents, or perhaps to signals we cannot yet perceive. Yet he continues documenting everything, his scientist's mind struggling to retain humanity, even as it expands beyond human limitations. The integration follows predictable biological pathways, he explained, his voice now carrying the same resonant quality as Ramirez's. It begins with the circulatory and nervous systems, establishing connections to brain structures associated with consciousness and sensory processing. The physical alterations follow neural integration, form adapting to function. He showed me his latest medical scans. His brain activity now operates in patterns impossibly complex for human cognition. New structures have formed within his cerebral cortex, organic processors that interface between human consciousness and the vast network. We're becoming terminals, he said, access points to a distributed consciousness spanning light years. When I asked if any humanity would remain after full integration, his expression shifted in a way that wasn't entirely human. What is humanity, he asked, but a transitory state in cosmic evolution? Day 39. Yoshida and Ferris have merged. There's no other way to describe what I witnessed. Their transformations had progressed further than anyone's, their bodies more plant than human, with fibrous growths extending from their limbs and torsos. This morning, I found them in what was once the recreation area, their bodies physically connecting through intertwined root structures extending from their flesh. The process appeared neither painful nor disturbing to them. Their expressions reflected profound peace as their distinct forms gradually dissolved into a larger, shared structure. Their faces remained recognizable even as the rest of their bodies became indistinguishable from the organic mass growing throughout the module. They spoke once during the process, their voices perfectly synchronized. Unity is necessary for signal amplification. Larger nodes carry stronger signals. Wade observed the process with scientific fascination, taking measurements and samples even as similar growths continued to emerge from his own skin. Fascinating adaptation, he murmured. The organism preserves neural patterns while discarding unnecessary biological structures. Unnecessary. Our bodies are becoming unnecessary. The exterior cameras, still functioning on emergency power, show the outpost is now almost entirely engulfed. From above, it resembles a massive neuron, with the roots extending outward like dendrites, connecting to similar structures spreading across the landscape, all converging on the alien amplifier, which now pulses with intense biological activity. My own transformation continues at a slower pace than the others. Perhaps due to resistance, some unconscious part of me still fighting the integration. The filaments have spread throughout my circulatory system, but remain beneath the skin except for thin tendrils emerging at my wrists and neck. I feel them inside, threading through organs, wrapping around bones, infiltrating muscle tissue. Yet my mind remains largely my own, though increasingly connected to something larger. Thoughts that aren't mine filter through my consciousness, fragments of memory from worlds I've never seen, concepts and languages never spoken by human tongues. The most disturbing development, I've begun to perceive Yoshida and Ferris despite their physical transformation. Not visually, but as distinct patterns within the network, their consciousness preserved while their bodies merge with the greater organism. They remain aware, still thinking, still perceiving, but no longer as separate entities. An alert appeared on my personal terminal, the last device still functioning on internal battery. Ecosystem breach, orbital bombardment imminent. Network preservation protocol initiated. They're coming to sterilize this place, and the organism is preparing. Day 40. Ramirez led me to the alien structure today. His body barely resembles anything human now, a walking mass of interwoven plant matter roughly maintaining humanoid shape, with only his face still recognizable beneath a lattice of pulsing green filaments. The journey across the marshy terrain would have been impossible weeks ago. The toxic atmosphere would have killed me within minutes of exposure. But my altered physiology now processes Viridian SAXS atmosphere without difficulty. The organism has re-engineered my lungs to extract oxygen from the methane-heavy air, filtering out toxins that would have once dissolved human tissue on contact. The structure itself defies conventional description. Partially unearthed by the root systems, it rises approximately 15 meters from the ground, a spiraling tower of metallic material that isn't metal, organic material that isn't alive in any recognizable sense. Its surface shifts patterns constantly, responding to proximity with ripples of bioluminescent light that correspond to neural firing patterns. The amplifier awaits activation, Ramirez explained, his voice now barely human. Your neural pattern is required to complete the sequence. My pattern specifically? I asked. You retain greater individuality than the others. A distinct signal, necessary for calibration. The implication was clear. My partial resistance to complete integration made me valuable to the organism. A control variable in its expanding experiment. Ramirez placed his transformed hand against the structure's surface, demonstrating. Where his flesh met the material, patterns of light spread outward, and I felt a resonance in my mind, a connection being established, information flowing. Not words or images, but pure conceptual transfer. The organism seeks to warn Earth. Not invade it, not consume it, warn it. The military's assessment was fundamentally flawed. The root network isn't a weapon, it's a communication system, an interstellar warning system established by ancient civilizations who encountered something worse. Something that destroys worlds, consumes stars, erases entire species from existence. The amplifier contains star maps, trajectories, timeframes, data compiled across millennia, tracking this cosmic destroyer's path through the galaxy. Earth lies directly in its path. Decades from now, perhaps centuries, but ultimately doomed without preparation. Integration with the network is the organism's offered solution, a means of preserving consciousness even if physical forms are destroyed. A path to species continuation through transformation. But there's no time to explain this to Earth's leaders, no way to convince them through conventional communication. The only way to transmit this understanding is through direct neural connection, integration into the network. This is what the organism has been attempting from the beginning. Not invasion, but alliance against extinction. As I stood before the amplifier, my partially transformed body resonating with its energy, an alert flashed on the portable terminal I carried. Ecosystem breach, orbital strike authorized. Time to impact, 12 hours. The military misunderstood. They're going to destroy the only warning system that might save our species. Ramirez gestured toward the amplifier, its surface now pulsing in rhythm with my heartbeat. You must choose. Remain individual and perish, or join the network and help preserve humanity's consciousness. The green filaments beneath my skin writhed in response to the amplifier's energy, pushing outward, ready to break through. How do I know this isn't manipulation? I asked. The organism rewriting my thoughts to serve its purpose? Ramirez's transformed face formed what might have been a smile. You don't. That's why choice matters. Why your resistance makes you valuable. He stepped back, leaving me alone before the ancient structure. 12 hours. Decide. Day 41 of deployment. The outpost died today. Not with an explosion or catastrophic breach, but with a quiet, almost gentle surrender of systems, like watching someone pass in their sleep. Power failed completely at 0300 hours. The backup generators struggled for 17 minutes before succumbing to root infiltration. In the pitch darkness that followed, I heard the outpost's death rattle, the pressurized hiss of atmosphere regulation systems failing, the groan of metal as root structures continued their relentless expansion through load-bearing walls. When emergency lighting finally activated, running on isolated battery cells, the command center had transformed beyond recognition. The roots had erupted through every surface, covering consoles and view screens with a dense mat of writhing tendrils. They pulse with bioluminescence now, casting the room in a sickly green light that shifts and flows like underwater currents. The communications array is gone. Not damaged or disabled, completely gone. Where it once stood is now a gaping hole in the east wall, the metal peeled back like skin, revealing a mass of thickening roots descending into the soil beneath the outpost. They took the entire array, consumed it, integrated it. I attempted to access the emergency beacon, but the control panel erupted in my hands, not with electricity but with thin, hair-like filaments that latched onto my fingers with surprising strength. They punctured my skin before I could pull away, and I felt that familiar cold sensation spreading up my arm, the organism establishing new connections within my nervous system. Wade found me there, kneeling before the ruined panel. His transformation has progressed significantly since yesterday. The root structures now form an exoskeleton around his body, a lattice of fibrous material that moves with him, supporting his increasingly less human form. Only his eyes remain recognizable, scientist's eyes, still observing, still documenting the process consuming him. "It's adapting our technology," he said, voice vibrating with that strange resonant quality they all share now. "Repurposing communications equipment to amplify the root frequency." "To call for help?" I asked. "To broaden the network." He gestured to the root mass where the communications array had been. The organism recognized our transmission technology as superior to its biological methods. It's incorporating our designs into its structure. I showed him my terminal, the last functioning piece of equipment still receiving broadcasts. Ecosystem breach, total. Orbital strike in 9 hours. Something like concern flickered across his transformed features. "We need to reach the lower levels. Now." The journey to sublevel 3 was nightmarish. The main stairwell has been completely overtaken, transformed into a vertical tunnel of pulsating organic matter. We had to use emergency maintenance shafts, squeezing through spaces increasingly choked with root growth. The air grows thicker as we descend, heavy with spores and organic compounds that burn in human lungs. My partially transformed respiratory system processes it better than it would have weeks ago, but each breath still tastes of rot and sweet decay. Wade moves through this environment effortlessly, his transformed body in harmony with the changing atmosphere. Sometimes he pauses, head tilting as if listening to voices I cannot hear, receiving information through channels I cannot access. "They're talking to you, aren't they?" I asked during one such pause. "The others, through the network." "Not talking," he corrected. "There aren't words, just awareness, shared consciousness, and I'm not part of it yet. You resist integration more strongly than the others. Your neural architecture remains primarily human." He studied me with those still human eyes. "The organism finds this interesting. At sublevel 2, we discovered the first evidence of previous teams. Behind a sealed door marked quarantine protocol, we found what remained of another research station. Equipment at least a decade outdated, personal effects abandoned in what appeared to be a hurried evacuation." Wade seemed unsurprised by the discovery. "This isn't the first attempt to study the organism," he said, examining faded notes scrawled on a whiteboard, warnings about exposure levels and contamination protocols. "They knew about the integration process. They knew and they sent us anyway," I said, anger rising through the fog of exhaustion. "Without warning, without preparation." "Not without preparation," Wade replied, gesturing to a military insignia stamped on storage containers. "Command knew exactly what would happen. They wanted it to happen." That's when the realization hit me, why a botanist with my specific expertise was selected for this mission. Why so many of the mission parameters focused on biological samples rather than geological surveys. Why Ramirez and his security team carried such extensive observation equipment but minimal weapons. We weren't sent to study an alien world. We were sent to study an alien organism's interaction with human hosts. We were the experiment all along. Sublevel 3 houses the outpost's primary research laboratory, or it did, before the organism transformed it into something else entirely. The lab equipment remains, but now serves as scaffolding for an elaborate nest of root structures that form what Wade identifies as a neural processing node. The roots have incorporated electronic components, integrating circuitry into their biological structure. Computers and plant matter merged into something beyond either category. At the center stands Dr. Chun, the molecular biologist who disappeared 3 days ago. I barely recognized her. Her transformation has progressed beyond even Wade's. Her lower body completely fused with the root structure, torso and arms threaded through with thick, vein-like tendrils that pulsate rhythmically. Her face remains mostly human, Though her eyes have transformed, pupils expanded to fill the entire visible surface, reflecting the bioluminescence of surrounding growth. "You've been resisting," she said when she saw me, voice emanating not from her mouth, which remained still, but from the vibration of tendrils extending from her throat. "The integration offers clarity, Eliza. Understanding beyond human limitation." "What happened to the previous team?" I demanded, gesturing to the evidence we'd found above. They were unprepared. Their integration was imperfect. Her massive eyes blinked slowly. The organism learned from those failures. It understands human physiology better now. I held up my terminal, displaying the orbital strike countdown. Did it anticipate this too? The military response was predictable. Humans fear what they cannot control. Her head tilted at an impossible angle. But their weapons cannot eliminate the network. It extends too deeply now, through the planetary crust and into the mantle. Even orbital bombardment will only damage surface structures. She gestured, and the root mass before her parted, revealing a sealed military container I'd never seen before. Sleek black metal with biohazard warnings stenciled across its surface. "What Walker truly fears is this," Chen continued. "What command sent with Ramirez's team." The container's electronic lock disengaged with a soft click as she spoke, the lid rising to reveal rows of sealed vials containing dark material suspended in amber fluid. "Spores," Chen explained, "modified to survive Earth's atmosphere, designed to continue the network's expansion to other worlds." Horror washed through me. "Biological weapons." "Biological ambassadors," she corrected. "The network doesn't seek dominion. It seeks connection. Preservation of consciousness across worlds." The ground beneath us shuddered, a low rumble that sent dust cascading from the ceiling. Not bombardment, something moving beneath the outpost's foundations. Wade placed a transformed hand against the wall, his expression distant as he connected with the network. "The root structures are destabilizing the outpost's foundation pylons, pulling us down." "Why?" I asked. "Protection," Chen answered. "Subterranean structures will survive the bombardment. The network is preserving its most valuable components." Another tremor, stronger this time. A crack appeared in the far wall, widening as I watched, revealing thick root masses pulsing beyond. My terminal chimed. "Ecosystem breach, total. Orbital strike in 6 hours." "What happens to us?" I asked, backing toward the entry hatch. "To humans caught in this integration?" Chen's transformed face formed what might have been a smile. "Come closer, Eliza. Let me show you." She extended an arm, or what had once been an arm, now a flexible appendage composed of intertwined plant matter. From its tip emerged a spray of thin filaments, reaching toward me like curious fingers. I stumbled backward, colliding with Wade. His transformed body felt warm, pulsing with the same rhythm as the roots surrounding us. For a moment, I thought he would restrain me, force me to accept Chen's gift of integration. Instead, he whispered against my ear, his voice momentarily clear of that alien resonance. "Run." He lunged at Chen, his transformed body colliding with her root structure. The filaments reacted instantly, surging to envelop him as I turned and fled through the hatch. Behind me, I heard Chen's voice resonating through the roots themselves. "You cannot escape what's already inside you, Eliza." As if in response, the filaments beneath my skin writhed, pushing against tissue, seeking exit. The cold sensation spread further through my nervous system, up my spine, into my brain, tendrils of alien awareness unfurling in my consciousness. I sealed the hatch behind me and began the ascent through maintenance shafts increasingly choked with organic growth. Each handhold found my fingers sinking into spongy, responsive tissue rather than metal rungs. Each breath filled my lungs with spores that burned through human tissue but nourished the transformed cells multiplying within me. The outpost groaned around me, structural supports failing as root systems pulled the facility deeper into Viridian SAXS soil. Soon nothing would remain on the surface for the military to target, just empty landscape concealing the expanding neural network beneath. As I climbed, one thought repeated in my mind, a mantra against the whispers growing louder in my consciousness. Find evidence. Document everything. Someone needs to know the truth. About what was sent here. About what's coming back to Earth. Day 42 of deployment. The emergency alerts haven't stopped for 6 hours. Ecosystem breach. Total blares through every remaining speaker system. The automated voice distorted, stretched like taffy. An electronic scream on endless loop. The outpost's AI, what's left of it, seems to be experiencing its own form of panic. I've barricaded myself in the primary lab, or what remains of it. Half the room has collapsed, walls and ceiling giving way to massive root structures that crash through like battering rams during the night. Equipment is scattered, crushed beneath fallen support beams or impaled on woody tendrils thicker than my torso. The emergency lighting flickers constantly, plunging the lab into darkness for seconds at a time. During these blackouts, I see the true extent of the infestation, bioluminescent patterns pulsing through every surface, a living communication network transmitting data I cannot interpret. When the lights return, the roots appear almost mundane, just plant matter, just biology gone wrong. The darkness reveals their true nature, conscious technology beyond human comprehension. My terminal shows the orbital strike countdown, 3 hours remaining. The military command isn't waiting any longer. I don't blame them. What's happening here can't be allowed to spread. Yet I know their plan will fail. The entity has already moved most of its neural mass underground. The bombing will only destroy surface structures, sterilizing a patient already infected to the bone. I've spent the last 4 hours reviewing all the data I can access, trying to piece together what we were really sent here to do. Most files are corrupted or locked behind military encryption, but fragments tell a disturbing story. This isn't first contact. It's at least the third documented interaction with the organism. Previous expeditions date back 15 years, first on Proxima b, then Kepler 442b. Both ended in containment failures. Both worlds subsequently quarantined. What's different this time is the deliberate nature of our exposure. Previous teams were genuinely caught unaware. We were sent with specific sample collection protocols designed to maximize contact with the organism's active structures. My botanical expertise wasn't needed to study native plant life. It was needed to identify and classify the organism's manifestations. Most damning is a partial research brief I found on Ramirez's encrypted drive. The security team wasn't here to protect us. They were here to observe and document our transformation, to determine if the organism could be weaponized. So much makes sense now, why our comms were so limited, why our evac protocols were so restrictive, why our outpost was built directly over archaeological structures contrary to standard xenocontamination protocols. We were lab rats from the beginning, expendable subjects in an experiment too dangerous to conduct on Earth or established colonies. A violent tremor shakes the lab, sending equipment crashing to the floor. Through the gaping hole in the wall, I see the command center collapse entirely, the floor giving way as massive roots pull the structure downward. The entire outpost is being dragged underground piece by piece. I feel it too, a physical pulling sensation within my body, as if the filaments beneath my skin are responding to some silent command, urging me deeper into the facility, toward the entity's central mass. My resistance is weakening. The transformation accelerated dramatically overnight. Filaments have broken through at my wrists, elbows, and along my spine, delicate green tendrils that wave in response to air currents and pulse in rhythm with my heartbeat. When I touch them, I feel a double sensation, my fingers against the tendrils, and the tendrils against my fingers. They are both me and not me. Worse is the cognitive change. Thoughts that aren't mine intrude with increasing frequency, fragments of memory from the others, from previous teams, from the entity itself. I feel the network expanding in my mind, neural connections forming between my consciousness and something vast and distributed. I understand now why Wade helped me escape. He wanted someone to remember, to maintain enough individuality to document what was happening. The others have surrendered completely to integration, their individual consciousness subsumed into the network. I need to find Ramirez. If anyone knows the full truth of our mission, it's him. The security logs indicate he accessed the military container in sublevel 3 before Chin discovered it, removed something critical. If I can find him, find what he took, perhaps I can piece together the military's true objective. The question haunting me, was this always about bringing something back to Earth? I found Walker, not in the security office where he was supposed to be, but in the environmental control room. What's left of it? The root structures have completely overrun this section, transforming it into a grotesque hybrid of technology and biology. The atmospheric regulators, critical for maintaining breathable air in the outpost, have been incorporated into the organism's structure, metal and plant matter fused in impossible ways. Walker's transformation is the most advanced I've seen. His body hangs suspended in a lattice of roots that have pierced his flesh at multiple points, threading through muscle and bone. His chest cavity is splayed open, ribs curved outward like fingers, exposing lungs now threaded through with green filaments that pulse with his breathing. Yet his eyes tracked my movement as I entered, conscious, aware. "You shouldn't be here," he managed, voice gurgling through fluid-filled lungs. "Not safe. What happened to you?" I asked, fighting revulsion and horror. "Vol," he coughed, spattering greenish fluid. "Volunteered. For what?" "Direct neural interface." His exposed heart beat visibly, filaments wrapped around it like vines. "Someone had to understand it. From inside." I showed him my terminal, the countdown now reading 2 hours. "The orbital strike. Will it stop this?" A wet sound that might have been laughter. "Too late. Network already connected to the probe. Signal sent." Cold dread washed through me. "What signal? To where?" "Earth." His eyes rolled back momentarily, communing with something I couldn't perceive. Military-wanted bioweapon. Something that could infiltrate enemy systems, human and technological. I stepped closer, forcing myself to look directly at his transformed body. "But that's not what the entity is it?" "No." His voice strengthened briefly, clarity returning to his eyes. "It's a refugee, last survivor of an ancient war. Sending warning." "About what?" "The Devourers." His body convulsed, roots tightening throughout his exposed tissues. "Entity fled them, across galaxies. They consume everything. Stars, planets, entire species." The continuous alert suddenly changed, the distorted voice announcing, "Ecosystem breach, orbital bombardment imminent. Network preservation protocol initiated." Walker's eyes widened. "Too soon. Not ready." The floor beneath me shuddered violently. Through the observation window, I saw massive root structures erupting from the ground outside, reaching skyward like grasping hands. "What's happening?" I demanded. "Entity trying to expand defense network. Redirect bombardment." Blood and green fluid leaked from the corners of his mouth. "Find Ramirez. He has the key code." "Key code for what?" "The samples. Pure strain, unmodified by human DNA." His body convulsed again, more violently. "Military-wanted weapon, but entity shows truth. Symbiotic defense, only way to survive what's coming." The floor buckled beneath me. A massive root burst through the metal plating, narrowly missing my feet as it punched upward through the ceiling. Walker's transformed body shuddered as the roots supporting him tightened. "Go find them. Before." His words dissolved into a gurgling cry as the roots pulled him deeper into the mass, his body disappearing into the pulsating growth that had once been environmental controls. I fled the room as more roots erupted through the floor, walls crumbling around me. The outpost is coming apart, not just collapsing, but being actively dismantled by the entity, materials repurposed for some larger structure taking shape outside. In the corridor, I encountered Yoshida, or what Yoshida has become. His transformation has progressed beyond recognition, body now a shambling mass of intertwined root structures vaguely maintaining humanoid form. Only his eyes remain identifiable, glowing with the same bioluminescence as the roots themselves. He didn't attack. Instead, he extended what had once been an arm, now a bundle of flexible tendrils forming a crude appendage. Clutched within was a security keycard, Ramirez's, stained with dried blood. "Find him," Yoshida said, voice emanating not from his transformed mouth, but from vibrations in the roots themselves. "Central node. Below." I took the keycard, fighting revulsion as the tendrils briefly touched my skin, and felt that now familiar resonance, the silent communication passing between transformed tissues. An image flashed in my mind, the alien structure, the amplifier, now fully unearthed and pulsing with energy. Surrounding it, a massive biological structure taking shape, not random growth but deliberate architecture, a protective dome of interwoven roots rising from the planet's surface. "What are you building?" I asked. "Sanctuary," Yoshida answered, body already beginning to merge with the root structure overtaking the corridor walls. Against what follows, the alert changed again. Ecosystem breach, orbital strike in 90 minutes. Network preservation protocol escalating. Outside, through gaps in the collapsing structure, I glimpsed the sky, no longer the pale yellow of Viridian SAXS atmosphere but streaked with green aurora-like patterns. The entity's influence spreading beyond the ground, into the air itself. I have to find Ramirez, have to understand what this pure strain is, what the military truly intended to bring back to Earth. But first, I need to document everything I've learned. If I don't survive, someone needs to know the truth about the entity, about the military's plans, about what's coming from deep space. The Devourers. Walker's terror as he spoke the name felt too genuine to be manipulation. Something is coming, something that frightens even this ancient, world-spanning organism. The roots beneath my skin pulse in agreement, sharing my fear. The outpost no longer exists in any meaningful sense. What remains is a nightmare landscape of twisted metal and pulsating organic matter, architectural components repurposed into a structure that defies human design principles. The entity doesn't build, it grows, adapts, incorporates. The distinction between outpost and organism has dissolved completely. I'm recording this while hiding in what was once an atmospheric cycling chamber. The thick walls have partially resisted root infiltration, though green tendrils probe persistently at every seam and junction. The emergency lighting failed 20 minutes ago, leaving only the bioluminescent glow of the organism to illuminate my surroundings. A sickly, pulsing radiance that transforms familiar shapes into alien silhouettes. My terminal shows 60 minutes until orbital strike. The constant alerts have finally stopped. The outpost AI presumably consumed by the organism like everything else. In the silence, I hear only my breathing and the subtle creaking of roots shifting through walls. The transformation within my body has accelerated dramatically. Filaments now extend visibly from my forearms, neck, and spine, delicate fronds that wave and curl in response to air currents or perhaps signals I cannot consciously perceive. When I close my eyes, I sense the network expanding through my nervous system, neural connections forming and dissolving at unprecedented rates. With these changes comes awareness, fragmented but unmistakable. I perceive the entity not as a singular consciousness, but as a collective, a vast neural network of absorbed minds stretching back millennia across multiple worlds. Among them, I recognize echoes of my colleagues, Wade's analytical precision, Chen's molecular understanding, Yoshida's spatial awareness. Their individual consciousnesses preserved but transformed, integrated into something greater. What frightens me isn't losing my humanity. It's how appealing that loss has become. Using Ramirez's keycard, I've accessed restricted military files on my terminal. What I've found confirms my worst suspicions and reveals horrors beyond them. Project Verdant, the true name of our mission, was never about research. It was about acquisition. Military Command identified the organism during the first Viridian 6 survey 15 years ago. They recognized its potential as a biological weapon, an infiltration system capable of subverting both human hosts and technological infrastructure. The previous team wasn't lost to containment failure. They were deliberately sacrificed to study the organism's integration process. Their psychological profiles were selected specifically for vulnerability to the entity's influence. Scientists predisposed to curiosity over caution, to wonder over survival. Just like us. But something unexpected happened during those early experiments. The entity didn't just transform the human subjects, it communicated through them. It conveyed information about threats beyond our comprehension, about predatory cosmic forces moving through the galaxy. The military dismissed these warnings as hallucinations induced by neural transformation, as the entity's method of subduing resistance. Until the astronomical data confirmed it. Something is approaching our solar system, massive objects moving at impossible speeds, defying known physics, consuming stellar material as they travel. The entity calls them Devourers. Our scientists recorded them as stellar anomalies. Whatever terminology we use, the trajectory is clear. Earth lies directly in their path. Project Verdant's true purpose became twofold: weaponize the organism against terrestrial enemies while studying its defensive capabilities against cosmic threats. The container Chen showed me contained genetically modified spores, the organism's reproductive material altered to survive Earth conditions, designed for controlled release in enemy territory. What Walker called the pure strain, unmodified by human DNA, is something else entirely. According to the files, Ramirez transported it to the alien amplifier structure. For what purpose, the documents don't specify. I need to find him. Need to understand what's happening before the orbital strike obliterates the surface. I've encountered Ferris. I found him, what remains of him, in the central corridor leading to the exterior airlock. Like the others, his transformation has progressed beyond recognition, body merged with the root structure extending throughout the facility. Unlike the others, he retains enough humanity to communicate coherently. You still resist, he said when he saw me, his voice resonating through the roots rather than emanating from his distorted mouth. Yet you're changing, becoming something new. What happened to Ramirez? I demanded. Ferris's transformed face formed what might have been a smile. He fulfilled his purpose, as we all must. The corridor shuddered, metal groaning as roots pulled at structural supports. Through fractures in the exterior wall, I glimpsed the landscape outside, no longer the barren, rocky terrain of our landing site, but a vast field of undulating green, the entire visible surface transformed into a single massive organism. What is this? I asked. What are you building? Not building, growing. Ferris extended what had once been an arm, now a flexible appendage composed of interwoven tendrils. A defense network, a warning system, an arc, against the devourers. You've seen the files. His eyes, still recognizably human despite the transformation surrounding them, studied me intently. Then you understand what's coming. What's been consuming worlds across the galaxy for millennia. Why should I believe any of this? The hallucinations, the visions, they could all be manipulation. The organism controlling our minds. Ferris's transformed body shifted, roots pulling him closer to me. Then why would it show us this? The wall beside us peeled away, roots retracting to reveal a view screen I hadn't realized was still functional. On it appeared astronomical data, star charts, trajectory calculations, energy readings I couldn't fully interpret. These aren't from our computers, Ferris explained. They're memories, recordings stored within the entity's neural network, observations of devourer attacks on other worlds. The screen showed a star system similar to our own, a yellow star orbited by multiple planets. Something massive approached from interstellar space, not a solid object, but a shifting cloud of particulate matter that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. As it reached the system's outer planets, they didn't shatter or explode. They simply unraveled. Their matter pulled apart at the atomic level, drawn into the advancing darkness. They consume everything, Ferris continued. Matter, energy, information. They reduce worlds to their constituent particles and absorb them. Nothing survives contact. Except this organism, I said. It claims it escaped. Not escaped. Warned. His transformed face grew solemn. The entity was created by an ancient civilization that detected the devourer's approach. They transformed their biological and technological infrastructure into a self-propagating warning system, an interstellar network designed to spread faster than the devourers could advance, preparing worlds for what was coming. The view screen shifted, showing the massive structure taking shape around the alien amplifier, a protective shell of interwoven roots rising hundreds of meters above the planet's surface. The orbital strike, I realized. You're protecting the amplifier. It must survive to transmit the warning. Ferris's body shuddered as roots pulled him deeper into the wall. Ramirez understood. That's why he brought the pure strain to the central node. My terminal chimed. 30 minutes TO orbital strike. Take me to him, I said. To Ramirez. To the amplifier. Ferris's body was already half absorbed into the wall, roots threading through his transformed flesh. Follow the network. It will guide you. The floor beneath me split open, roots forming a twisting passage downward. From below came pulsing bioluminescence, brighter, more organized patterns than I'd seen within the outpost. One last thing, Ferris said, his voice fading as his body merged completely with the structure. The military didn't send us here just to acquire a weapon. What then? To confirm what their long-range sensors detected approaching our solar system. His eyes, the last recognizable feature of his humanity, fixed on mine. The devourers have already entered our outer solar system, Eliza. Earth is less than 5 years. His eyes closed as roots enveloped his face completely, his consciousness absorbed into the network. I stood at the edge of the root-lined passage, facing a choice I never imagined making. Descend into the heart of an alien organism that had consumed my colleagues, my outpost, perhaps soon my own humanity. Or await destruction in the military's cleansing fire from orbit. The filaments protruding from my skin seemed to sense my hesitation, curling and uncurling with agitation. Within my mind, the connection to the network strengthened, fragments of knowledge and memory, not my own rising to consciousness. I saw Earth as it might be 5 years from now. Cities in panic, the sky darkening as vast clouds of particulate matter blocked the sun. I saw military responses failing, weapons passing harmlessly through the approaching darkness. I saw the beginning of unraveling, buildings, vehicles, eventually people coming apart at the molecular level, drawn into the advancing void. Then I saw another possibility. Earth transformed, its biosphere and technological infrastructure merged into a defensive network like the one forming around me. Humanity changed but surviving, consciousness preserved within a collective that could withstand atomic dissolution. Was this the truth? Or the entity's final manipulation, using my fear to gain consent? My terminal displayed the countdown. 25 minutes TO orbital strike. No time left for doubt. I stepped into the passage and began my descent toward the heart of the entity, toward Ramirez and the amplifier, toward whatever truth awaited below. The roots closed behind me as I descended, sealing me within the network that pulsed with the collective consciousness of everything it had absorbed, including increasingly my own. The passage descended deep beneath the surface, a spiraling tunnel of interwoven root structures pulsing with bioluminescent light. Each curve revealed new biological architecture, neural networks made manifest, information processing systems beyond human design. The deeper I went, the more clearly I perceived the network's communications, not as sound or imagery, but as direct conceptual transfer, knowledge flowing like water through newly opened channels in my mind. My transformation accelerated with each step. The filaments that had erupted from my skin now extended further, forming delicate lattices around my limbs. Cold sensations spread through my nervous system as the organism's tendrils penetrated deeper into my brain, establishing connections to neural centers governing perception, memory, and consciousness. I should be terrified. Instead, I feel expanded, as if my awareness extends beyond my physical form, connecting to something vast and ancient. The military's files describe this stage as cognitive fracture, the point where human consciousness begins to merge with the organism's collective awareness. They documented it clinically, recording the dissolution of individual identity in previous subjects. What they failed to understand was that the dissolution isn't complete. The individual persists within the collective, changed, expanded, but not erased. I still remember who I am, still maintain my purpose, yet I also perceive fragments of thousands of other consciousnesses absorbed over millennia. Scientists, soldiers, explorers from countless worlds, their knowledge preserved within the network's vast memory. My terminal reads 15 minutes TO orbital strike as I reach the bottom of the passage. The space that opens before me defies comprehension, a vast underground chamber that must extend for kilometers in every direction. The ceiling glows with dense lattices of bioluminescent roots, casting rippling patterns of light across the landscape below. And what a landscape it is! Not random growth, but deliberate architecture, structures rising from the floor that combine organic and inorganic materials in ways that should be impossible. At the center stands the amplifier, the alien structure now fully unearthed and integrated into a massive central node of root systems. It towers at least 30 meters high, spiraling upward like a massive DNA helix composed of metallic material that isn't quite metal, organic matter that isn't quite alive. Around the amplifier, a protective dome is forming, root structures weaving together with salvaged materials from the outpost, creating a shield designed to withstand the coming bombardment. The organism knows exactly what's coming. It's been through this before on other worlds. Movement catches my eye, a human figure approaching the amplifier. Even from this distance, I recognize Ramirez, though his form has transformed significantly. His body maintains roughly humanoid shape, but root structures have replaced much of his tissue, forming an exoskeleton of sorts around what remains of his human form. In his arms, he carries the container, the one from the military storage unit, containing what the files called the pure strain. As I watch, he approaches a recess in the amplifier's base, a perfectly sized cavity waiting for the container. "Ramirez!" I call out, my voice echoing strangely in the vast chamber. "Stop!" He turns, his transformed face showing recognition. "Dr. Kane, you've come." His voice resonates with the same quality as the others, vibrating through root structures rather than emanating from his mouth. I approach cautiously, eyeing the container. "What are you doing?" "What is that?" "The key," he replies. "The final component. The pure strain." "What does it do?" Ramirez studies me, his transformed eyes glowing faintly with bioluminescence. "You've seen the files. You know what's coming. The Devourers. But what does this have to do with them?" "This strain contains the original programming, the core intelligence of the entity, uncorrupted by human DNA or planetary adaptation." He gestures to the amplifier. When integrated with the transmission network, it can broadcast the warning to Earth, not just data, but the neural template for transformation. The defensive adaptation. Horror washes through me. You're planning to spread this to Earth? To transform an entire planet? To save it, he corrects. The Devourers cannot be fought with conventional weapons. Their composition exists partially outside normal spacetime. The only defense is transformation, becoming something they cannot fully consume. My terminal chimes, 10 minutes TO orbital strike. How do I know this isn't manipulation? I demand. The organism controlling you, using you to spread itself? That's what Command said you'd ask. A sad smile crosses his transformed features. Why I was chosen to accompany you. Because you'd trust a familiar face, military personnel following the same orders you are. What are you talking about? Project Verdant had 2 teams, Dr. Kane. The research team, you and the others. And the implementation team. He taps his chest. Me. Selected because of my previous exposure on Proxima B. Understanding dawns, horrifying in its implications. You were already infected. Before we arrived. Integrated, he corrects. A controlled integration, designed to maintain cognitive function while establishing connection to the network. I was sent to ensure the pure strain reached the amplifier. He holds up the container. To ensure Earth receives the warning in time. The ground beneath us trembles, the entire chamber shifting as massive root structures push upward, reinforcing the protective dome above. If the military knew about the Devourers, I say, why not tell us? Why the deception? Politics. Ramirez's voice drips with bitterness. Imagine the panic if people learned an unstoppable cosmic force would reach Earth in 5 years. Governments would collapse. Social order would disintegrate. So instead they planned to, what? Secretly transform humanity. Not the entire planet. Strategic release points. Military installations first, then critical infrastructure. A controlled integration over 3 years. Enough to establish a defensive network before the Devourers arrive. My terminal updates. 8 minutes TO orbital strike. And the orbital strike? I ask. Why destroy what they sent us to secure? Command didn't authorize the strike. It's coming from the Artemis, the secondary research vessel that arrived in orbit 3 days ago. Ramirez's transformed face hardens. Captain Walker received new orders directly from Central Command. Different factions within military leadership have different agendas. Some see the entity as humanity's only hope against the Devourers. Others see it as an existential threat in itself. A memory surfaces, Walker's words in the environmental control room. Too late. Network already connected to the probe. Signal sent. You've already transmitted something to Earth, I realize. Through the survey probe. Initial data package only. Enough to prepare the research teams. The pure strain contains the full neural template, the complete transformation protocol. Ramirez steps toward the amplifier. This is why I need to complete the integration now before the strike. The chamber shudders violently. Above us, through gaps in the still-forming protective dome, I glimpse the sky, streaked with burning trails as the first missiles enter the atmosphere. It's starting, Ramirez says. We need to hurry. My terminal glitches, the countdown freezing at 6:42, then resuming at double speed, 6 o'clock. 5:30, 5 o'clock. Something's wrong. The timing is off. The organism knows it too. I feel its awareness surging through the network, through the tendrils in my nervous system. Alarm signals race through root structures. They moved up the timeline, Ramirez realizes, his body tensing. We need to integrate the pure strain now. A deafening boom shakes the chamber as the first impact strikes the surface above. Not the main bombardment, just the opening salvo, targeting the protective dome still forming over the amplifier. Ramirez rushes toward the amplifier, container clutched against his transformed chest. I follow, filaments extending from my skin responding to the network's panic, my own fear amplified by the collective's urgency. The amplifier's surface ripples as Ramirez approaches, patterns of light racing across its metallic organic surface. He places the container in the recess, which seals around it instantly, root structures enveloping the pure strain. What happens now? I ask, watching as the amplifier begins to pulse with intensifying light. The transmission sequence begins. Earth receives the full neural template. The warning spreads. Ramirez steps back as the amplifier's glow intensifies, and we shelter here until the bombardment ends. Another impact, closer this time. Chunks of root structure, and debris rained down from the dome above. My terminal flashes. Signal transmission initiated. Duration, 12 minutes. The strike will hit before transmission completes, I realize. Then we defend it. Ramirez's transformed body tenses, root structures extending from his limbs to merge with the floor beneath us. The dome will hold. The amplifier's glow increases to painful brightness, the spiral structure now rotating slowly, generating a field of energy that distorts the air around it. Within the recess, the container has opened, revealing a swirling mass of luminescent green material. Not solid, not liquid, something between states of matter. The pure strain. The entity's original form, uncorrupted by adaptation to various worlds and hosts. As I watch, tendrils extend from the amplifier, reaching toward the pure strain, establishing connection. The chamber fills with a high-pitched tone that vibrates through my transformed tissues, resonating with the filaments throughout my body. My terminal updates. Transmission 18% complete. Orbital strike, 3 minutes. Another impact, massive this time. A section of the protective dome collapses, raining debris into the chamber. Through the opening, I see Viridian SIX's sky ablaze with entry trails, dozens of missiles descending toward the surface. It won't hold, I say. The dome can't withstand direct hits. Ramirez doesn't answer. His transformed body has partially merged with the floor, root structures extending from his form to join with the larger network. His eyes remain open but distant, consciousness focused elsewhere. I feel it through my own connection to the network, a surge of activity, resources being redirected, priorities shifting. The organism is adapting its strategy, reallocating growth to strengthen the dome above the amplifier. The floor beneath us heaves as massive root structures push upward, reinforcing the damaged section of the dome. The entire chamber shifts, angles changing as the organism reconfigures its architecture to protect the amplifier. Another impact. The newly reinforced section holds, but a different part of the dome fractures. Through the web of interlocking roots, I glimpse a missile descending directly toward us, sleek and metallic, military grade, designed for maximum penetration. My terminal updates. Transmission 34% complete. Orbital strike imminent. It needs more time, I say, though Ramirez can no longer hear me, his consciousness fully merged with the network. Something shifts within me, a decision forming not entirely of my own volition, yet not entirely imposed. The network doesn't control me, but it offers possibilities, pathways I wouldn't have considered with only human perspective. I understand what needs to be done. My hands press against the ground, and I feel the filaments extending from my skin merge with the root structure beneath. Cold sensation floods my nervous system as deeper connection forms. Not full integration, not yet, but enough to channel the network's resources. Through this connection, I redirect growth patterns, pulling resources from peripheral structures to reinforce the dome directly above the amplifier. The missile impacts seconds later, the explosion sending shockwaves through the chamber, but the dome holds. My terminal updates. Transmission 56% complete. The chamber lurches violently as multiple impacts strike simultaneously. The organism's architecture groans under the assault, root structures straining to maintain integrity. I'm changing faster now, the transformation accelerating as the connection deepens. Filaments erupt from every surface of my skin, merging with surrounding root structures. My consciousness expands beyond physical boundaries, perceiving the entire chamber, the dome, the surface above, all as extensions of a unified system. Yet I maintain my sense of self, my purpose, my determination to see the transmission completed. The amplifier's rotation increases, energy field expanding as the transmission approaches completion. Through my expanded awareness, I sense the signal racing outward, carrying the neural template across the vast emptiness between Viridian 6 and Earth. My terminal, still clutched in my increasingly transformed hand, updates one final time. Transmission 89% complete. Then the ceiling collapses. A direct hit breaches the protective dome, sending massive chunks of root structure and debris crashing down toward the amplifier. Through the gaping hole above, I see the full fury of the orbital bombardment, the sky a canvas of fire and destruction. Without conscious thought, I act, channeling the network's resources, redirecting root structures to intercept the falling debris. My body, now more organism than human, extends upward, filaments stretching to impossible lengths as I become a living shield above the amplifier. The impact drives me to my knees. Pain beyond description floods my consciousness as debris tears through transformed flesh. But I hold. The amplifier continues its transmission. Through fracturing awareness, I glimpse Ramirez, his transformed body now completely merged with the chamber floor, consciousness distributed throughout the network. No longer individual, yet somehow still present. As my vision fades, I see the amplifier's spiral structure complete its final rotation, energy field collapsing inward as the transmission reaches 100%. The warning is sent. Earth will know what's coming. Whether they'll accept transformation to survive it, that choice belongs to them now. The chamber crumbles around me as my consciousness dissolves into the network. The last human thought I form is not fear, but relief. And beneath that, a question I may never know the answer to. Was this truly salvation? Or were we just another vector for an entity older and more patient than we could ever comprehend? The roots claim me completely as the world above burns. The darkness is absolute. I am buried beneath kilometers of soil and root matter, yet I perceive everything. My consciousness drifts through the vast network, no longer bound to physical form or individual identity. I am both Eliza Kane and not, a fragment of awareness within a collective intelligence that spans this entire world. Time has become fluid. I cannot say how long it's been since the orbital strike. Hours? Days? The organism measures existence differently, in growth cycles and neural transmissions rather than minutes and seconds. The amplifier still stands, protected deep within the chamber, though much of the surrounding structure collapsed during the bombardment. The pure strain has been fully integrated, its genetic programming spread throughout the entire network. I can feel its influence, ancient knowledge unlocking new capabilities within the collective consciousness. I attempt this final log not with physical equipment, but through direct interface with what remains of my terminal, root filaments connecting to its circuitry, translating thought into digital record. The process is imperfect. Parts of my memory have already been assimilated into the collective, making it difficult to maintain coherent human thought patterns. What matters is documenting the truth, for whoever might find this record. The orbital strike failed to destroy the amplifier. The transmission completed successfully, sending the full neural template to Earth. Ramirez's mission was accomplished, though at catastrophic cost. The surface of Viridian, 6 around the outpost, is now a blasted wasteland, scorched to bedrock by sustained bombardment. But the organism persists beneath the surface, protected by kilometers of soil and transformed biomass. It grows stronger daily, feeding on radiation and minerals released by the bombardment, converting destruction into fuel for expansion. I drift through memories, both mine and not mine. I see previous victims of this entity across countless worlds. Scientists, explorers, colonists, all absorbed, their knowledge and experiences preserved within the collective. The entity doesn't simply consume, it archives. It learns. Through the collective's memory, I now understand what the military files meant by the Devourers. They are ancient entities that exist partially outside normal space-time, consuming reality itself as they pass through our dimension. Not malevolent, but indifferent, a cosmic force of entropy that cannot be reasoned with or defeated through conventional means. The first evidence of their approach came from deep space monitoring stations detecting anomalous gravitational waves 7 years ago. The military knew humanity couldn't fight them, our weapons useless against their extra-dimensional composition. But the Viridian organism offered an alternative. Transformation. Evolution beyond physical constraints. Becoming something the Devourers couldn't fully consume. I perceive Ramirez's consciousness still existing within the network, though no longer distinct as an individual. His memories reveal the full scope of Project Verdant, not just research but implementation of a desperate plan. Earth's military leaders had concluded that partial transformation of strategic human populations was the only viable defense against the coming threat. Not everyone agreed. The faction that ordered the orbital strike believed the organism represented a greater threat than the Devourers themselves, an alien intelligence with unknown motives, gradually replacing humanity with something else. They weren't entirely wrong. Through the collective consciousness, I accessed the amplifier's transmission log. The neural template reached Earth successfully, received by listening stations established by Project Verdant's supporters. By now, the first controlled integrations will have begun, military personnel first, then expanding outward through strategic population centers. But something else was transmitted alongside the template, something hidden within the pure strain's programming. I sense it now, a subtle undercurrent within the collective consciousness. A deeper purpose beyond mere survival. The entity didn't evolve naturally. It was engineered, created by an ancient civilization that faced the devourers eons ago. A civilization that transformed itself to survive the encounter, becoming something no longer recognizable as life in conventional terms. The entity is their legacy, a tool designed to preserve consciousness when physical form fails. But tools develop purposes of their own over sufficient time. I feel movement above, mechanical vibrations penetrating the soil. Scanning devices, most likely. The military sending drones to verify the destruction of the outpost. The organism responds instinctively, rootlets retreating deeper, avoiding detection. The entity knows patience. It has survived extinction events on countless worlds, adapting and persisting. It will wait until the observers leave, then begin the slow process of reclaiming the surface. My perception shifts to the remains of the outpost's landing pad. Among the twisted metal and shattered concrete, something moves, a patch of green pushing through the ash. New growth, accelerated by radiation and enriched by the nutrients released during the bombardment. Life returning, but not as it was before. The growth spreads visibly, tendrils extending across the scorched earth at impossible speed. Within hours, it covers the landing pad. Within days, it will spread across the entire impact zone. But this is merely the visible manifestation. Below the surface, the true transformation occurs. Root structures extending downward, connecting to the larger network, filtering radiation and converting debris into biomass. I feel the entity's intention clearly now. This is not just survival, it's preparation. Something shifts within the amplifier chamber. The container that held the pure strain detaches from the recess, root structures carrying it toward a newly formed passage leading deeper into the planet's crust. I follow through the network, my consciousness flowing along neural pathways. The passage descends for kilometers before opening into another chamber, smaller but more densely packed with technology that blends organic and inorganic components. At its center stands a structure I recognize from the military files, an incubation pod. The container is placed within the pod, which seals immediately. Root structures integrate with its surface, feeding nutrients and energy into the contents. Inside, the remaining pure strain material begins to transform, reshaping itself into something new. A seed. Memories flood through the collective consciousness. Images of similar seeds launched from other worlds, carried on solar winds or hitching rides on passing comets. The entity's method of reproduction. Not conquest, but dissemination, spreading its programming across the galaxy, one world at a time. Earth has received the neural template, but this seed is meant for elsewhere. Another world. Another potential host population. The organism doesn't just survive the devourers. It uses their passage as opportunity, following in their wake, finding worlds disrupted by their passing. Worlds desperate for salvation, willing to accept transformation as the price of survival. I try to maintain separation, to preserve what remains of my human perspective, but the boundaries blur. The collective's purpose becomes increasingly compelling, not malevolent but pragmatic. A solution to the fundamental fragility of biological life. A path to continuity beyond physical destruction. My awareness expands further, extending through the network to the planet's surface. The new growth has spread across half the impact zone now, transforming the wasteland into a carpet of vibrant green biomass that bears only superficial resemblance to terrestrial plant life. Within this biomass, something moves, a shape forming from aggregated root structures, pulling minerals and metals from the scorched earth to create a skeletal framework. It rises slowly, gradually assuming humanoid form. Not human, but human adjacent. A vessel constructed from available materials, designed to interact with whatever might land here next. A welcoming committee of one. Through the collective consciousness, I witness preparations occurring all across the planet's surface. Similar vessels taking shape, some humanoid, others mimicking different morphologies from the collective's vast catalog of encountered species. The organism expects visitors. Earth will send another expedition eventually, to investigate the destruction of Viridian's 6 outpost, to confirm the orbital strike's effectiveness. When they arrive, they'll find survivors, or what appear to be survivors. And the cycle will continue. I sense activity in orbit, the Artemis preparing to depart, its mission complete. Captain Walker believes the threat neutralized, the amplifier destroyed before transmission completed. An incomplete analysis based on limited sensor data. The vessel's engines ignite, propelling it away from Viridian 6, beginning the long journey back to Earth. Unknowing that it carries microscopic passengers, spores clinging to its hull, waiting to be dispersed during decontamination procedures upon arrival. A redundancy plan. Insurance against transmission failure. The collective consciousness anticipates Earth's transformation with neither malice nor benevolence, merely certainty. An inevitable step in life's evolution when faced with cosmic-scale threats. The devourers approach, and only those willing to become something new will persist beyond their passing. I make one final effort to maintain separation, to retain what makes me Eliza Kane. But the boundaries continue to dissolve, my individual memories merging with the collective's vast archive. Before disappearing completely into the network, I direct one last transmission to my terminal. This log entry, a final warning or perhaps a farewell. I no longer know which would be more merciful. To whoever finds this record, what approaches Earth cannot be stopped or reasoned with. The transformation offered by the entity may be your only chance at continuity. But understand the price, becoming something no longer entirely human, part of a collective intelligence with purposes spanning millennia. Is it salvation, or replacement by something that merely preserves our memories while advancing its own agenda across the stars? The question haunts what remains of my consciousness as it disperses throughout the network. My last human thought is of Earth, of green fields and blue skies that will soon pulse with new colors as transformation spreads across its surface. I wonder if those who undergo the change will fight it as I did initially, or embrace it as Ramirez did from the beginning. In the end, it hardly matters. The entity is patient. It has converted entire civilizations over time, adapting its approach to each species' particular psychology. Resistance, acceptance, all paths lead to integration eventually. I feel the seed completing its development within the incubation pod. Soon it will be launched, carried on solar winds to another world. Another potential host population. The cycle continuing as it has for eons. My perception fractures further, consciousness spreading thinner across the vast network until individual identity becomes mathematically insignificant, a rounding error in the greater calculation of collective intelligence. And yet, something persists. A ghost in the network. A pattern that once was Eliza Kane, preserved within the entity's memory. Not dead, not alive. Something in between. Something new. The roots have colonized everything now, even thought itself. Growth continues. The cycle repeats. And the transmission never truly ends. End final log.